Fox Sports welcomes you to the following presentation of the National Football League.
Moments away from kickoff here at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. And Brian, for a franchise that has not been in the playoffs since 1999, they love to know they're in the hunt. Now, there's so many scenarios and so many games left to be played that we'd be here from now and next Tuesday. But the bottom line for the Lions, just win.
All you can ask of a team in December is to be relevant, to be making a playoff run. They haven't been here in a long time. This is new territory for them, but I think they're up to it. Let's remember their December last year, where they swept the month, had 4 wins. Jim Schwartz pointed that to say that prepared us for the run we've got to have this month.
Well, the Lions have won the toss, selected to receive, so Ryan Longwell is set to kick it away. And waiting back in the end zone, Stephon Logan. Longwell puts a right foot on it. And at the 2-yard line, here's Logan. Out across the 20, and he brings it all the way up to the 28-yard line. Same group has been intact up front for Matthew Stafford, who for the first time in his very young career is playing a second Sunday in the month of December.
Well, if they're going to get to Calvin Johnson on the outside, and that's what they want to do, they're going to have to first hit these 2 tight ends, Pettigrew and Scheffler. That's going to bring the coverage about to where they can maybe, just maybe, get one-on-one coverage on Calvin Johnson.
Should be noted, again, Detroit without running back Kevin Smith. Re-injured his ankle in the loss to New Orleans last Sunday night. They put it in the hands of Nate Burleson. And that's a gain of close to 15 on first down. Minnesota on defense. Jared Allen, who has 14.5 sacks on the year, had 3 of them in the first meeting between these two teams, a game won in overtime by the Lions.
And we talked about in their secondary, they're getting healthier in the secondary. Asher Allen is back in the lineup. They missed him last week when Tim Tebow kind of tore up this secondary of the Vikings.
You and I were at Mall of America Field last weekend in Minnesota, and that was a thriller right down to the final seconds. Stafford in trouble and is able to get back close to the line of scrimmage. He's dropped by Kevin Williams.
You can see Calvin Johnson at the top. Look at this over the top. He's going to see this all day. A safety high over the top with someone underneath. As I said earlier, whether it's the running game, whether it's the check down to the backs, whether it's the tight end, you got to make those safeties come down out of that configuration to get the one-on-one matchups with Megatron.
Loss of a yard, second down at 11. Right in the hands of Johnson, and he's up to the 47-yard line. It'll bring up 3rd down and 5 for Stafford and the Lions. Talked about that first game back in week 3. Minnesota led 20-0 at halftime. The Lions had a grand total of 50 yards of offense, but then in the second half they cranked it up to Johnson, who had a couple of touchdowns. Pettigrew had a big game, and the Lions won it in overtime. Too low to Pettigrew. And if there's one chink in the armor outside of the interceptions that Stafford has thrown, he has not been a good 3rd down passer this year.
And that has something to do with the accuracy. Those are the questions on Matthew Stafford coming in. I think he's overcome that question. He is an efficient passer. Obviously, he hit that stint with the bad finger where he wasn't. But that's where it's going to show up on 3rd down. That was a very inaccurate pass.
Ben Graham puts a foot on it. A fair catch by Marcus Sherrills. 43-yard punt. Christian Ponder against the Detroit defense when we return.
Game on Fox is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com.
Vikings starting this drive inside their own 10-yard line. Last week, 6 drives began inside their own 15, and for a 3rd straight week without the great Adrian Peterson in their backfield. And on first down, Ponder to throw. The ball is loose. Recovered for a touchdown. stripped away by Averill, and Stephen Tulloch is on top of it in the end zone.
What we say coming out, they got to protect Christian Ponder. Worst possible scenario. Load hope lets Averill get a short corner coming in from behind. Christian Ponder had no idea he was there. That is a quarterback's worst nightmare.
Tell you what, with all the talk about Kyle Vanden Bosch and, of course, Ndamukong Suh, you look over the last 3 years, and Averill might be the biggest playmaker in this entire defensive front line. Averill has now forced 6 fumbles this year. He has 8 sacks.
And the key is obviously when you can have a Cliff Averill on one side and a Kyle Vanden Bosch on the other. That's the difficult one.
Defense, number 69. Detroit has elected to take that penalty on the ensuing kickoff.
For 69 for Minnesota, that's Jared Allen. And now the point after by Jason Hanson is good. Ponder, of course, had the 3 turnovers, critical turnovers in that loss to Denver. On the opening drive, took him down the field, fumbled inside the red zone, had an interception returned for a touchdown, and that fourth quarter final drive interception would set up the game-winning field goal for Denver.
And this is tough to hear and see for Vikings fans, but this is all about the growth of Christian Ponder. We had that game last week. I know that was painful, but the mistake at the end of the game that led to a turnover where Andre Goodwin basically baited him into that interception. That was the learning curve for Christian Ponder. At a 2-10 season, I know you don't want to hear it, but those lessons are invaluable. They will pay dividends next year for the Minnesota Vikings.
Well, you look at the last 2 weeks, been a couple of pretty good weeks for Ponder as his growth continues since taking over as a starting quarterback, replacing the since released Donovan McNabb.
And this is indeed a test for Minnesota. Leslie Frazier told us the month of December is going to decide the personality of this team going forward, particularly when you're talking about a 2-10 team. Let's remember that the Detroit Lions, we just told you, had a great month of December last year in a non-playoff year, leading to what now appears to be a pretty good year. That's exactly what Leslie Frazier wants to see out of his team. They're being tested here with an early turnover for a touchdown by Detroit.
Booted through the end zone. Of course, for Christian Ponder, like any rookie quarterback, you're going to have your ups and downs. In his first start, week 7, couple of touchdowns, but 2 interceptions that led to 6 Packer points. He won his second start, 64 completion percentage, lost the next 2. Week 12, up to 68%. The comeback fell short in that one. And then last week, a Vikings rookie record 381 yards, but the 3 turnovers, including the big one in the fourth quarter you just referred to. Gerhardt cannot escape the tackle of Cliff Averill. He was there in the backfield to slow him down. Take a look at Minnesota offensively. Gerhardt coming off his best day in the NFL, rushing for 91 yards last week.
We've already seen the challenge that these tackles have to deal with. On the outside, Devin Aromashodu had a good game last week. He needs to have another good game to help open up Desante Shenko on the inside.
And of course, Percy Harvin has never been better than he has been the last 2 weeks, with the team missing Adrian Peterson. And here is Percy Harvin. Turns the corner and big yardage for Harvin across midfield to the 49 49-yard lines, and Harvin had a career-high 156 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns last week. He also can do it in the run game.
Watch Vanden Bosch here, right here. He gets collapsed. He buys the run action. That's what you're looking for on this type of reverse. This has to be what the Minnesota Viking running game is going to be, with Gerhard inside pounding away. They've got to create explosive plays without Adrian Peterson. That's one of them.
Good blocking down the field there by the rookie tight end Kyle Rudolph. And now Ponder. Terrible decision there. Throwing into triple coverage. Alphonso Smith with the interception. 2 possessions, 2 turnovers for Ponder.
Here you have to see, did Alphonso Smith have the ball? A legal catch looks like it does. It does not hit the ground. He had his hands under it. Certainly it moved around, but it never touched the ground. So that's clearly an interception. They obviously saw that upstairs. That's why we didn't get a challenge.
A fumble in the end zone, recovered for a touchdown, and now an interception, and Detroit back on offense with a 7-0 lead. First carry for Maurice Morris. Of course, the Lions will not have their leading rusher through the remainder of the season. Javed Best on the injured reserve list.
I've got to go back to this interception. Last week against the Broncos, he threw the exact same interception. You can see right here at the top. Last week it was the linebacker, but now Alphonso Smith comes running underneath it. It was the same route, same combination. I've been saying Christian Ponder is learning from his mistakes. I don't know that he learned there.
Gain of a yard by Morris, 2nd down and 9 from their own 48-yard line. Free play here for Izzy.
Neutral zone infraction. Defense, number 96. 5-yard penalty, 2nd down.
That's Brian Robinson, who suffered a concussion in the loss to Denver last week, but went through all the series of tests and pronounced fit for today's game.
I get asked all the time about why isn't that a free play. It has to do how deliberate the offsides is, and you don't want unabated to the quarterback because of an injury. Had it been more subtle, they might have had that free play.
Stafford in trouble. And down he goes all the way back at his own 42-yard line, and there's Jared Allen. Allen had some rather nasty comments about the city of Detroit, Michigan leading up to this week, and a hearty round of boos for him.
Well, Allen and Robeson, they have 2 outside pass rushers just like Averill and Vanden Bosch, and when you have to protect both sides, that caused the hesitation on the outside, and then Jared Allen got to finish it off.
Fifth time in his career that Jared Allen has sacked Matthew Stafford. 4th time he's got him this year alone. Looking down the field to a wide open Titus Young for a touchdown. Young, of course, who saw a lot of time on the bench after that unnecessary roughness penalty in New Orleans on Sunday night. But the home run ball here.
And you can see it's a 2-deep defense with a high safety, but it breaks down when the play gets scrambled by Matthew Stafford. It held Samford inside just enough to allow you to get that deep outside route for the touchdown.
2nd round pick out of Boise State, his 3rd receiving touchdown of the season. And for Ponder and Minnesota, 2 turnovers resulting in 2 touchdowns on both their possessions. We're going to review that scoring play. We'll be back. Scoring play. Did he break the plane of the end zone before the ball was stripped by Jamarcus Sanford?
And it's a legitimate review. It does look like he crossed the goal line. And keep in mind now, it's not a question of whether he had possession. This is not the process. As we can see here, yeah, he was a ball carrier at that point. Once the ball crossed the plane, like any ball player, then now it's a touchdown. And here's my concern right here. You just talked about Titus Young and kind of the mistakes he made last week. Look at the way he pulls up. This is not finishing. This is something Jim Schwartz, along with some of the mistakes they made last week, this is something that needs to be addressed for this team if they're going to go to the playoffs.
Going after is good. Matthew Stafford, 15th straight game with a touchdown pass. This one to Titus Young.
And in the euphoria of the score, Jim Schwartz obviously congratulating his young receiver, but I hope in this process he also makes it clear, look, young man, you left us a little vulnerable there. We're going to make this playoff run against a really good team. That might have cost us.
Well, for the Minnesota defense, that is a 12th touchdown pass allowed this year of 20 or more yards, and that is most in the NFL. This beat-up secondary taking its lunch over the last 5 weeks. And leveled at the 10-yard line is Cheryl's Ashley Palmer, backup linebacker on the stop.
We talk about how the attention that Calvin Johnson draws. I want you to watch in here now. Obviously, you're not going to let this guy beat you. Look how many people are locked on to Calvin Johnson. Here. He was carried in here. That's what allows you to go to the outside. When you get so preoccupied with a talent like Calvin Johnson, this is what Matthew Stafford has to get credit for, seeing he got the matchup he needed outside.
So now Ponder and the Vikings trying to regroup. They give it to Gerhardt on first down, and he carries up to the 14-yard line, a gain of 3 on first down. A fumble on the very first play, recovered in the end zone for a touchdown, and then the interception, which turns into the touchdown strike to Titus Young.
And on a 2-10 football team at this point, it is less about the score, it's less about the win. This sounds odd, but it's how do you carry yourself in the face of adversity when you're 2-10 and finishing in December.
Well, that defensive front is mauling this Minnesota offensive line to begin this game. Let's send it back to Los Angeles for a game break.
Well, like the Lions, the Falcons are fighting for a wild card spot. Doesn't get much easier than this. Matt Ryan, Roddy White wide open, 5 yards on the score against Carolina. And the Falcons have a 7-0 lead. And as we send it back to Tom and Brian, we want to welcome back legendary producer Bob Stenner. Give him our love, guys.
Indeed we do. Welcome back to Hall of Fame producer Bob Stenner to our crew this week. And it is a nightmarish start for Christian Ponder and the Minnesota Vikings. We brought up Abrams' name earlier. He's forced a fumble, and now he has a sack.
They're committing a lot of folks here. You can see right here, 92's coming off this edge. He's already had a heck of a start. This is just a 4-man rush with a twist on the inside. It causes Ponder to hesitate with both push from the inside, no place to go. Averill and Van den Bosch from the outside bring it home.
And bear in mind, they're very thin along that defensive line. Of course, Ndamukong Suh finishing off his 2-game suspension. They're without Nick Fairley and Lawrence Jackson today. Logan, man, is he quick. All the way down to the 34-yard line.
Well, I don't know if you can have a tougher start than Minnesota's having right now. Their front 7 defensively, which is probably the last strength of this team right now, has to step up and try to get some control. The offensive line of Minnesota is collapsing. Christian Ponder has already thrown in an interception and a fumble. Defensively, they've been victimized down the field. This front 7's got to take control of this game, or try to get control of the game, I should say.
Stafford looking for Johnson, and he missed him.
We talked about Matthew Stafford having here an injury against the Broncos, a square hit on that index finger, trying to shake it out. He had to wear gloves in the Chicago game you and I had, Tom, and he just couldn't get any action. Look at how that index finger is not putting pressure, but now today in his warm-up, he's back. He feels good about it. He even gives a wink to one of his guys here and says, you know what, I'm okay.
Yeah, last week was the first time he played without a spin, played without a glove.
77, offense, 5-yard penalty, second down.
Sherrills committing the penalty. We talked about the Sunday night game when he threw for over 400 yards, not wearing the glove, not wearing the splint, and obviously not wearing either one again here today. The second down and 15 from their own 39. With the Minnesota 39, I beg your pardon, and Stafford a bullet to Young. And a nice tackle right there at the 34-yard line. Burleson on the reception.
And this is what we're talking about, the grip on the ball. Follow-through is important in any sport. Golf, tennis, doesn't matter. It's all about follow-through and how can you do that. Look, you can see right here, that index finger is the accuracy finger. That's what gives you the final push off the ball. If you can't use that, you're not going to be as accurate. That's where your follow-through and the spin on the ball is created. When you can't put your finger on that, now you're throwing a finger short and it affects your follow-through. It clearly did Matthew Stafford for 2 games.
And of course, he threw all those interceptions. In fact, Stafford had 10 of them. And leaping over a defender is Pettigrew and barrels his way inside the 20.
This is just a nice delayed. You love this with the tight ends. Protect, protect. Now I'll just slip out with a little inside tight end screen. Pettigrew going over the top. This is basically their running game. Without a solid running back core, these little dump offs to the back and the tight end, these are their extended handoffs.
Encroachment, defense, number 93, 5-yard penalty, first down.
Well, you and I have seen Minnesota the last couple of weeks, Brian, and you're talking about a team that, yeah, they're 2-10, the worst start in franchise history, but 7 of their 10 losses have been by 7 points or less. So most of the time they have stayed right in it. They're on the verge of getting blown out of the gym in this one.
They are, and as we said, Leslie Frazier said, they're going to determine the personality of this team in the month of December going forward. But right now, that personality is being tested.
So first down and 5. Touchdown, Pettigrew. The big punt return by Stephon Logan sets up the short field in a scoring strike from Stafford to Pettigrew.
I want you to watch here on the right side. They call off the rush with the back to the flat. They're guessing right now, trying to see who can hurt us the most. If it's Calvin Johnson, Titus Young has hit us. Now all of a sudden you see Brandon Pettigrew. Matthew Stafford is able to spread the ball around and hurt this Minnesota Viking defense in a lot of different ways.
Point after is good. Pettigrew had over 100 receiving yards in the first meeting and a first quarter touchdown in round 2. Well, many wondered if we would see Christian Ponder here today after suffering that hip pointer in Minneapolis last week. He's fumbled, but was recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. He's thrown an interception, which led to a touchdown. And then after a big punt return by Logan, another Detroit touchdown, and it is 21-0 for this Lions team, trying to regroup from the back-to-back losses, which they committed 22 penalties and 6 personal fouls. And for more on that, here's Laura.
Wilson said the best thing that happened to this team was the last couple of weeks, all the media attention regarding their reputation and their behavior, because he said, we are not an 0-16 team fighting for respect anymore. That really sunk in. We are a team fighting for the playoffs. We can be aggressive, we need to be, but we can't be stupid. He said, I guarantee you we will not commit a foolish penalty in the month of December. I guarantee it. We know what's at stake. They're playing like it.
Well, that is music to Jim Schwartz's ears if they can play that kind of football, because this is a good team.
Neutral zone infraction. Defense, number 99. 5-yard penalty, first down.
Well, management for the Minnesota Vikings came out and said Leslie Frazier will be back as our head coach, and I applaud that because in these circumstances, these players need to know who they're accountable to, and Leslie Frazier is measuring them up. We talked about defining their personality in the month of December, and that is their challenge. This is exactly the kind of game that's going to define that personality that he has to see who he wants back next year.
In the hands of Harvin, spun out of one tackle, but then Averill came up and made the stop. Well, Averill has been all over the field here early on. The first man to slow him down was Harris, but Averill was there to wrap him up. Averill already off to the big start. We told you about all the injuries to their defensive front.
Yeah, and that so far that has been an issue for them. They're without Chris Houston and on the back end and Louis Delmas. Normally that would rack a defense, but particularly with this lead, they can be pretty passive with a 21-point lead on that back end.
Gerhardt breaks a couple of tackles, and he has a first down up to the 35-yard line. Gerhardt looked good last week.
It's a different style of running than obviously with Adrian Peterson, and if you're not used to it, and the Detroit Lions didn't see a heavy dose of Gerhardt the last time they played because Adrian Peterson had a big game, you got to learn this is a big man, this is a powerful man. He's not going to get necessarily the explosive plays, but he's going to pound away and get you those positive yards.
15-yard run for Gerhardt. Short drop, Ponder fires, should have been intercepted by Aaron Berry. So let's fire it out to the West Coast to Kurt Menefee for a game break.
Cam Newton tapping into his inner Tebow, fakes the run and then a jump throw. Finds his tight end Jeremy Shockey for the 6-yard touchdown. Tying the game with the Falcons at 7 apiece as they start the second quarter. Tom, Brian, and Laura.
You know, Brian, you hear the term scoreboard watching a lot in baseball when you get down to the final few weeks of the season. I gotta believe a lot of the Lions fans, anyway, will be scoreboard watching to see what Atlanta does. Here's Lorenzo Booker for a big carry. Ball is loose, scooped up by Aromashadu. And they'll mark that ball inside the 40-yard line, if not right at the 40.
Just kind of a delayed draw here with a trapping action by Kleinsasser, and all of a sudden, if he hadn't got knocked sideways just a little bit, this thing might have been out the gate. This is the only luck that Minnesota's had all day. After a fumble, Aromashadu comes up with the ball.
Harris stripped it out of there. So they put it at the 41-yard line. Ponder looking for Harvin. And Harvin was open. And Ponder waited a little bit too long to fire it to the end zone because Harvin had gotten behind the defender.
That ball needed to go up earlier. That's hard to do when you break contain here. You can see Harvin short motions from the outside. Ponder's very good at this. Harvin goes vertical. He's outside the protection scheme right now where he needs to be. Had he put that ball up deeper and earlier, Minnesota would have had a much-needed touchdown.
Eric White saying no, no, no. He was burned for the big touchdown from Robert Meacham in New Orleans on Sunday night. And wide open is Visante Shenko, and that's a first down to the 22-yard line.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say somebody made a mistake because they brought pressure off that strong side. Whoever was supposed to drop and run with Visante Shenko did not do it. I can't believe that they were expecting the safety, Chris Harris, to jump down that far. I think one of the blitzers needed to stay with Shenko.
Short drop. And that one through the hands of Shenko. Low thrown ball. Second down.
Tom, you talked about the Detroit fans watching the scoreboard and scoreboard watching. As a coach, you don't want your players doing it, but you're up 21-0. I guarantee you they are. And you know what? I'd be surprised if Jim Schwartz didn't take a peek at that board every now and then as well. You don't want to do it, but you got to keep your focus. They know what's at stake.
I don't know if Doug from Cunningham is watching the scoreboard.
No, I can promise you, he doesn't even know where the scoreboard is.
Marvin on the carry. Inside the 20, down to the 16-yard line. Well, he is one intense guy after all these years, Gunther Cunningham.
And when you look at Gunther Cunningham, I've been coaching against Gunther, tried to hire him a couple times. There was no one more intense. No one dog cusses his players more than Gunther Cunningham. But no one loves to coach more than these guys as well.
Third and 4, and that's a first down reception close to the 5-yard line made by Harvin. So now Minnesota with a football, first and goal.
Now let's keep in mind now, we talked about a Minnesota team that how's it going to answer this challenge. This is pretty good. You can see right there, special zebra. What that is, it's telling the defense what the personnel group is. That's not the call of the defense. That's telling everybody on the field who you have in the game, and then now you can go back to your preparation. What does that usually mean?
What a beautifully designed call there, and executed for a touchdown to Basante Shanko. Took everybody else to the back of the end zone and just lay it off for the tight end. His third touchdown of the year.
He actually starts up in the backfield, shifts up. This is not unlike, or excuse me, just went in motion. Chip, this is not unlike what we saw with Pettigrew. The same play we saw with that little tight end screen can be very effective when you've got a tight end that's initially blocking and pass protection and then leaks out late.
Point after is good by Ryan Longwell. So Ponder and the Vikings answer after this dreadful start.
Tom, this is just what we're talking about. Look at Jim Schwartz. He is one upset head coach. Just what we talked about. This is what you worry about. You're up 21-0. Life's going good. Your guys are peeking at the scoreboard to see what the other games are going on. And then you let a team that's on the ropes go the length of the field for a score. He's going to get this thing under control.
And Brian, you know, you won a Super Bowl as a head coach with Baltimore. That entire defensive series began with a 1st and 10 5-yard penalty. So you put Ponder in a 1st and 5 just to try and get a little breathing room. And off they went.
Part of being a champion, a playoff team, is knowing how to put a game away. I don't care if it is just the first quarter. When you're up 21-0, he will hammer that home with his team.
And here's Logan. Another good return. He had one on a punt and now on a kick. Well, coming up this January, as they're taking a look at Logan, he appears to be all right. But Fox returns to the octagon. An incredible UFC fight night triple header. Some of the best fighters with a shot at the title, headlined by former light heavyweight champion Rashad Evans, undefeated Phil Davis, plus 2 explosive middleweight bouts. Saturday, January the 28th, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Fox. 21-7, a minute 44 to play in the opening quarter. Stafford to throw it on first down. Looking around. Finds a receiver for a gain of maybe 3 yards. Caught by Maurice Morris. And you look at some of the numbers. The takeaway is the key. And the points off the takeaway.
Always. Turnovers are always going to be a major determinant. I like the way Minnesota responded. Right now, Jim Schwartz knows he's telling Scott Linehan, I need a well-orchestrated drive. You want to take a shot for a touchdown? That's fine. But we just unraveled a little bit. My offense needs to show it's under control. And not do that. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
False start. Number 87. Offense. 5-yard penalty. 2nd down.
And Jim Schwartz knows it. You start as a coach, you start to see it unravel a little bit. You're up 21-0, and I guarantee you, it sounds negative, but guys, how do we hold this together? A lot of things can draw your focus away, but right here, the pre-snap penalties, just like that, that drives you nuts. You can't do anything with playing penalties. That's just playing. The post-snap knucklehead stuff, he's addressed it. But the pre-snap penalties, that's the lack of discipline that drives you nuts as a coach.
2nd down and 12. And a fine Pettigrew committed the penalty. Gets a big chunk of it back. It'll bring up 3rd down and 2.
And this goes beyond this game. When we sat and talked with Jim Schwartz, We've said it many, many times. The way they finished last year set them up for a good starting part of this year. They believe they're a playoff caliber team. The players have confidence. The players or the coaches have confidence. But you've got to deliver in crunch time. I know this is a struggling Minnesota Viking team, but this is crunch time. You can't have penalties. You can't have breakdowns like we've seen. They'll get it back, but it's got to be done.
Well, they've struggled here this year on 3rd down and 1, only converting on 58%. That will go up. And again, it's Pettigrew, who got hit with a $25,000 fine for bumping an official last Sunday night. And in the first quarter, Lions lead 21-7. Well, Jim Schwartz has said all week long, what happened in the first 12 games of the season, it doesn't matter. We can't change a single thing about it. All that matters, the final 4 weeks of the year to try and get into the playoffs.
Let's go back to that 3rd down play, Tom. You're going to see right here what we talked about. First, great vision by Matthew Stafford. And watch the ball come out of his hand. Very accurate, perfect rotation, right where he wants it. Just a little bit of a lead for Pettigrew. 2 big conversions on 3rd down for Pettigrew. But that's the type of accuracy we're talking about that escaped him for a couple games. Stafford 9 for 11. I'd say he's pretty accurate today.
131 yards and a couple of touchdowns. 2nd down and 6. They fake it to Burleson. Robinson looked like they got a hold right there on Sherlis. And you can book it. Well, now a decision to make. Do you take the penalty? Or on the incompletion, do you set up 3rd down and 6?
Holding, number 77, offense. 10-yard penalty, 2nd down.
This was kind of tough on Sherlis because watch what happens. He's got a pretty good protection outside, double fake. Stafford gets outside and then he stumbles, which kind of changed the action. He didn't know Stafford was outside. I'm not making excuses for him, but all of a sudden he looks up, he thinks he's got a pretty good block, and all of a sudden his quarterback's heading the other direction.
So a 10-yard penalty. 2nd and 6 goes to 2nd and 16. And Detroit on inside of midfield. And Stafford dancing around and is leveled right at his own 47-yard line by Everson Griffin. Well, lots of fireworks in the opening quarter. Very first play offensively for Minnesota. A fumble in the end zone, recovered for a touchdown. Ponder on the next series throws an interception, which led to a touchdown to Titus Young. And then after a big punt return by Logan, the touchdown pass Stafford to Pettigrew. So the penalty took him out of a 2nd and 6. And it's turned into ultimately now 3rd and 15.
Oh, I got started.
Wouldn't have been anywhere close to a 1st down. So again, and you hate to continue to bring it up, but you know better than anybody, Brian Billick. I mean, they may not be the personal fouls, they may not be the glaring bad boy quote-unquote penalties, but on defense to start the last drive, on offense here on this drive with great field position, a 2nd and 6 turns into 3rd and 15, and now you're punting.
Yeah, and it's the little things. And again, the other guys get paid too. So football is going to be football. You're going to make mistakes, but you hate to see the focus mistakes when you're up 21-0, then 21-7.
Went into the end zone, so Ponder and the Vikings get the ball for the first time here in the 2nd quarter, trailing 21-7. Minnesota starting another drive inside its own 20. This one from the 20. Detroit's had great field position, a couple of turnovers, a couple of touchdowns. And Minnesota scoring on its last drive and trying to get it going here. Back to the line of scrimmage is Gerhardt. Williams, the first man there to slow him down.
They obviously have to keep some type of running profile up. I just circled Percy Harvin, who's in the slot. Again, the difficulty in playing Minnesota. Where is Percy Harvin? He's outside. He's in the slot. He's in the backfield. It changes up your coverage rotation depending upon where he starts and where he finishes.
Alphonso Smith, his second interception of the game, and this one for a touchdown.
Christian Ponder, one of the things about him, people questioned his arm strength. You don't see this very often. The old square out. Most teams roll into their outside routes like that, so you get some speed. That gives the corner a chance to break down unless you're ready to run a stutter go. That was just ill-conceived from the beginning, and Christian Ponder way too late on the throw.
That is now 6 turnovers for Ponder in the last game and a little more than a quarter. And 2 of those have been returned for a touchdown. Another on the fumble recovery here on the first play from scrimmage went for a touchdown. So Alphonso Smith getting playing time due to the injury to Chris Houston and making the most of it.
Christian Ponder gazing into the stars, looking for some answers, standing next to Bill Musgrave, his offensive coordinator, and Leslie Frazier. Always, you got to coach. Always teaching. Look, work through this. We'll be here again. Now just put that behind you and move on. This conversation's a little bit more fun, I think, on the Detroit sideline than what this young man, Christian Ponder, is facing. It's all about learning at this point.
A little careless. Penalty there on Hansen on a kickoff.
Kickoff out of bounds on the kicking team. Ball be placed, 40-yard line. 1st and 10.
Well, far more importantly than anything on the field, we'd like to welcome the men and women in uniform serving around the world watching our broadcast today in 175 countries on the American Forces Network. We can't thank all of you for what you do. We hope you're enjoying our telecast today. God bless you all, and thank you for your service to the greatest country in the world. As we're traveling, not only during the holiday season, but every day, reach out your hand and shake a soldier's hand and say thank you. Harvard tripped up. Nice play made by Aaron Berry. And Berry is hurt. He was a young man, you may remember, that started a season opener as an undrafted free agent last year. Got hurt the very first game of the year.
Boy, you reach out like that, I wouldn't even begin to speculate right now. He knows something's not right. And as we said, they're a little short-handed to begin with. Obviously with Louis Delmas and Chris Houston already out.
Well, they continue to take a look at Aaron Berry, who got up and walked off the field. Laura Oakman will be checking in on him. A 2nd down and 10. They give it to Gerhardt with good running room. And he runs right through a would-be tackler. And is about 2 yards short of a 1st down.
You know, it's a great changeup for Minnesota when they can get it. You can see Vanden Bosch kind of limping off a little bit. And when they can get a changeup between Toby Gerhardt and Adrian Peterson when he's back in the game, it's a great changeup for Minnesota.
They're down in a couple. They pitch it to Harvard. This is going to be close. What a play made by Don Carey, another backup member of the secondary who came in to replace Aaron Berry, who just left a moment ago.
Loadholt on the right side here. That little kick step come around downfield. Couldn't quite get there. Couldn't quite get there out in front. The secondary guy pulled down underneath. Carey understanding, I'm not going to take on Loadholt high. I'm going to crawl underneath and see if I can make the play that way. Well, nice play.
Bring out the chains, and did he get it? Oh,
no. Oh, that's hard to miss by that much. Oh, he's giving it to him. I thought maybe it was going to be short. That's the old Marv Levy line. You know, it's hard to place it that close. How do you guys do that all the time?
Crowd didn't like it. Take a look at that. Here you have a team losing by 21 points. You talk about it all the time, Brian Billick, turnovers.
Exactly right, and it's always going to be a major determinant Just got the ball out there. Remember, the yellow line is not official.
Gerhardt able to avoid one tackler and goes into Detroit territory to the 47-yard line, closing in on 11 minutes to play until the half. 3 Minnesota turnovers, 2 interceptions and a fumble by quarterback Christian Ponder, leading to 21 of the 28 Lions points so far. Harvin, soft spot in the defense, and spins his way close to the 30-yard line for a first down.
You see, just coming out of the slot here now. And I tell you what, this is just a simple little out route that I don't know if that's where he belonged with Schenkel on the outside, but we talk about the growth of Christian Ponder. This has not been a good half for Christian Ponder, but he's back there firing it. He's continued to move on. That's going to be good for the Vikings and for Christian Ponder.
Brandon Bosch back on the field as Ponder has running room and he can run, and will wisely slide for another first down inside the 20. We'll see where they mark it, close to the 15.
Yeah, and that even hurt going down like that because that hip pointer is on the right-hand side. We've talked about, we've had Minnesota 3 weeks in a row now, and the speed of Christian Ponder, but you can see there, he didn't show the burst right there that we had seen in the earlier weeks. But even with that, nice conversion on to a first down by Ponder. I don't think he liked going down on that right-hand hip though.
Well, he's averaging over 8 yards a carry. Nice catch by a ball up and away from him to Aroma Shadu. And he's close to the 10-yard line.
And this is what you see in Christian Ponder coming out. He's got great pocket presence. We didn't realize how good outside the pocket he is. He's accurate arm, but not big arm strength. I think he's got a better arm than people gave him credit for. But the intelligence and coming out of the system that he did, that's what people attributed to why he was going to make it in the NFL.
Your old buddy Bobby Bowden.
Yes, sir. He knew what he was doing when he got Ponder.
Gerhardt bottled up on second down and 3. Big Sammy Hill, big, long, thick defender out of Stillman.
On the inside, this is where Detroit, and obviously without Ndamukong Suh, they feel good about the ability to rotate with their defensive linemen on the interior. They've got Sammy Hill, they've got Corey Williams, they've got a lot of big bodies inside they can roll through in the absence of Suh.
Another first down catch, this one by Aroma Shadu. It'll be 1st and goal at the Detroit 6-yard line.
You've got to like what you're seeing in Minnesota. Everything has gone Detroit's way. Bill Musgrave knows down here in the red zone, and this is where you really got to show as a quarterback. If they can get a touchdown here, bring it back to a 14-point game with all the things that have gone against them, that's something you can build on.
And they find on the quick slant Percy Harvin for the touchdown. We remember the game last week. They got down there. They didn't have Harvin or Rudolph on the field. We asked Bill Musgrave about it yesterday, and he said, hey, look, we talk about it every week. You'll see him in there the next time.
Right here. He knows where he's going. You got to be careful about staring it down, but look where he placed it. Good and low. The only person that was going to get that was Percy Harvin. That's the accuracy we talked about down here. It's a very tight window. This is just a quick slant route on the inside by Harvin. You don't want the ball in the air very long when you're throwing down in the red zone. Excellent throw, excellent accuracy by Christian Ponder.
Tell you what, this Percy Harvin is just having a great season. No Adrian Peterson, a rookie quarterback, and he comes to play every Sunday. Percy Harvin, his 4th consecutive game with a touchdown. He had 2 of them last weekend. And Gunther Cunningham and the Lions are looking for answers on defense. You know, outside of the turnovers, on poor throws by Ponder, the fumble by Ponder. Minnesota's been able to move the ball when they're not giving it away. Very short kickoff, and it's fielded by Logan, who runs out of bounds. 7:35 to play until halftime. And speaking of, what's coming up on the Visa Halftime Report, Kurt Menefee?
Coming up on the Visa Halftime Report, we'll have scores and highlights from Week 14 in the NFL, including a record-setting day for Patriot. And can the Jets continue to back up their talk and run the table? It's all coming up on the Visa Halftime. See you then.
First down and 10, Detroit, number 16.
Well, Gunther Cunningham right here, he knows he's got to get some things sorted out. The Detroit defense right now, 2 series down the field by the Minnesota Viking offense.
Morris. Sanford coming up to make the stop. That'll be a gain of 4 on first down.
Sanford, 33.
I keep talking about the growth of Christian Ponder because this is what it's about for Minnesota right now, sitting here at 2-10, and you got to like what you see in the resiliency. A lot of guys would have folded up their tent given the start that Christian Ponder had, but he kept firing back, and he's got his team back now within 2 scores.
Stafford chased by Allen and then ducked underneath. A tackle by Christian Ballard, rookie out of Iowa. So 3rd down and long coming up.
I want you to watch Matthew Stafford here. You're going to get the pressure off the edge here, but that sense, this is the growth of Matthew Stafford. He knew what was behind him. See how he secured the ball, that little look? He knew there's got to be someone chasing me down here. This can't be that good. Protecting the ball in that way shows you a little bit of the growth. Matthew Stafford, this is his 26th start. It's usually that 25 to 30 start range where a quarterback really comes into his own and things start to slow down and understand the game.
Well, with the 2 sacks so far today by Allen, he has taken over the league lead from DeMarcus Ware. Big 3rd down here for the Lions. And is it a catch? No, it is not. Had an eye again on Titus Young, who had the big touchdown in the opening quarter. So now all of a sudden, it's 3 and out for the Lions on offense. Ponder and Minnesota will get it back.
That was a heck of a throw by Matthew Stafford, but still not a conversion. And right now, Minnesota ought to be sensing it. This building has got quiet. They've had a good offensive series, a good defensive series. If they can get any kind of placement with their special teams.
Well, having a hard time understanding that end-over-end punt from your own 5-yard line. A very good field position.
Look at this throw right there. Boy, that's got to be caught.
Right through his hands.
Boy, and that's as tight a throw as you can make. We talked about the accuracy of Matthew Stafford. That was a legitimate question coming out, but he has proven he's got the accuracy to be successful in the NFL. Continues to grow. That 26th start I talked about is a pivotal time. Great time for him to really come into his own as they make this playoff run.
Well, starting this drive from midfield. First down, they give it to Gerhardt. And a good strong run by Toby Gerhardt, picks up close to 6. Well, if Minnesota can find a way to get into the end zone here, as we're down to the final 5 minutes and 40 seconds of the second quarter. Game on, starting in the second half.
Yeah, Detroit has been vulnerable to the run. Their philosophy, get pressure on the quarterback, pressure the quarterback, even if you give up a little bit in the run. But if they can get this back to a manageable game, that would allow Minnesota to stay with this run a little bit more.
Play action with Gerhardt. And looking down the field to Aromashodu. Boy, he's lucky it wasn't intercepted again. And again by Smith.
That one was on Aromashodu, though. With that kind of play action pass, Aromashodu kind of pulled up like he didn't expect the ball to be deep. When you come with a 2-man route, maximum protection after a play fake, it's just the 2 of you. You usually have one guy go deep, one go intermediate, and you can see he kind of looks up like he thought the ball was going to not be thrown. He needed to continue on.
Well, 3rd down and 4. Vikings are 3 or 4 on 3rd down so far. Pump fake. And now looking for a Romashadu, and he was open, and it was slightly overthrown. Oh, that had touchdown written all over it.
I love the play call because it gets this secondary of the Detroit Lions. They've already got a couple interceptions, one for a pick six. They want to jump all over this. They're smelling interception. Double move is a good call. Looks like it had plenty of air. Again, Romashadu looks like he's looking early. You always used to tell receivers, run this down, look late. The earlier you look, the slower you do. You can't just get to the ball. Go run this thing down and find it.
Louis angles it toward the sideline, and it takes a bounce and into the end zone. So now Stafford, with just under 5 minutes to play and a full allotment of timeouts, will have a chance. And coming up on Fox tonight, an all-new Family Guy going to deck your halls. Peter and the gang, a wild holiday adventure as the Griffins celebrate the season as only they know how. You can get jolly with music, merriment, and mayhem. 'Tis the season for laughter. Family Guy tonight at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, followed by an all-new American Dad on Fox.
Great job right here. The Gunners got pushing. He's looking for the ball. Stephen Logan faked him out. Fair caught right there. Here I am. Come get me. Let the ball go in behind you. Great special teams play by Stephen Logan.
Put in the hands of Burleson, and that didn't fool anybody. Read beautifully by Aaron Henderson, the younger brother of middle linebacker E.J. Henderson. Aaron in his first year as a starter.
What do we always say? You cannot let a team get outside the perimeter of the defense, force them back inside. Nice job holding off the block of Will Heller and forcing it back inside.
They have Stephon Logan now in the backfield. They pitch it to him, and here comes a reverse the other way to Calvin Johnson. Oh, boy, is he hit. And a flag comes in from a secondary. Jamarcus Sanford laid a big-time hit on Calvin Johnson.
Holding, number 80 of the offense. 10-yard penalty, replay, second down.
That's against Maurice Stovall.
Got to put the ball away, open field. Nice. You know, this is obviously a legal hit there. This is a ball carrier. This is a big man, Calvin Johnson. High, low, possibly, but great physical play by the secondary of Minnesota. He's going to be okay, but right now he's wondering, let's don't do too many more of those, okay? That's a great play call, but let's let somebody else do that, okay?
That's putting the ball in your receivers for back-to-back plays on reverses. To Burleson and now Johnson, and boy, he is indeed shaken up over there on the sideline. So Rashid Davis comes in to replace him. Keelan Williams, his first carry of the day. Greenway there to wrap him up, and a third down coming up.
And Detroit has had to come up with these creative ways to run the ball. Here you can, again, one more time. It's always good to see a good aggressive hit. Take on a big man low. You take him low, I'll take him on high. But Detroit, because of the injuries in the backfield, have come up with these creative ways to run the ball.
Third and a yard. I'm not sure Keelan Williams got there. He tried to stretch it out with his left hand. LaTroy Guyon, the first one there to spin him back to the inside, and he didn't make it.
Again, the yellow line is not official, but it's darn close. And he just, nice hit coming up late. E.J. Henderson at the last second, keeping him from getting that half a yard, that half an inch for the first down. Nice finish by E.J. Henderson.
Well, you know, so often, Brian, you talk about, you know, this being a passing league and all the numbers that are being piled up. We brought up early in the game, this Detroit team on third down and 1. As this is Sherrills from his own 15, and he got a big block. Penalty flag comes down. They may be bringing it all the way back. But just to finish that thought, as another flag comes in, Detroit on third and 1 is only converting a little better than 50% on the year.
Here we can see getting outside, and it looks like, I don't know if this is what they're calling it on. Got to get the head in front, just enough on the back. That's going to get called. Coming in on that backside. You're right, though, and that's been unfortunate for Detroit in that because of the injuries to Javid Best, Obviously, Kevin Smith not in the lineup today.
During the return, illegal block in the back, number 27 of the return team. 10-yard penalty, 1st and 10.
Losing job at best. Remember, when they're on this run, this guy was a dynamic part of their offense. The screen game, the draw game. So they're down to their 3rd and 4th running back. They know they've got to throw the ball to win. They've got the assets to do it. But to not have that running game, particularly like you're talking about, Tom, on 3rd and short, it's hard to get to 3rd and 1 and 2 in this game. And when you do, certainly, you got to be up in the 80% or better category of a 3rd and 1 and 2, because it's hard enough on those 3rd and longs. You're down to about the 15% category.
After the penalty, they back them up again inside their own 20. 2:29 to go and 2 timeouts, plus a 2-minute warning. Oh boy. And Lorenzo Booker just lost the handle. Look at this.
And Sammy Hill, Merry Christmas. No, it wasn't Hill. Thought it was Hill that ended up the ball. DeAndre Levy looks like somebody gets an early Christmas present here.
That's Levy.
It was Sammy Hill. Yeah, DeAndre didn't want it. He says, Sammy, I owe you something here. Here, you take the fumble. Wow, you're right. Except for the turnovers, Minnesota can feel good about what they've done, but the turnover is always the great equalizer.
4th turnover in this first half.
Just didn't had his eyes downfield, had the pocket, never really got a handle on it. That's the running back's job. The quarterback centered it right where it belongs. You got to cover it up and put it away.
And now a chance to build on this 14-point lead after the 4th turnover. And Stafford just has nowhere to go with the football, and he is sacked again. That's a 3rd sack in this game for Jared Allen. He had 3 of them against Minnesota the first time they met. Frustration for Leslie Frazier. 4th turnover of the half. We've reached the 2-minute warning. 6 sacks for Jared Allen in a game in nearly a half against Detroit this year. And he now has eclipsed triple digits. 100+ career sacks. Most in the NFL going back to when he first came up with Kansas City in 2004. Keelan Williams. And for an injured Maurice Morris are taking a look at his hand. But how about Jared Allen? What a force he has been.
Tell you what, incredible presence on the outside. Big pickup for Minnesota when they got him coming up from Kansas City. Not only in the pass, but in the run. They were, last couple years it has fallen off, but from 2006 to about 2009, this was as dominant a run defense. Very rare to find a guy that's solid, obviously, as a pass rusher and as a run defender. He's a complete player.
Well, now his defense is trying to make a stand after their 4th turnover of the half. And limit Detroit at the very minimum to a field goal try. They're going to let the play clock get down to 2 and call a timeout before 3rd and 6. Well, Brian, while we have a moment, you know, you take a look. Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago without Jay Cutler, without Matt Forte, at least for a while. We don't know for sure how long that will last. Forte will not be back this week or apparently next week. And then, of course, you have to throw in the New York Giants with a 6-6 record. All 4 of those teams are battling for basically 2 spots. You give an advantage to any of the 4?
Well, I don't, because as we can see in any given week, how are you playing? Last week, after coming off a tough loss to New Orleans, you just said, well, where's Detroit? They look pretty good today. Atlanta's on a good run, and all of a sudden they hit the tough step. The interesting combination is both New York and Dallas, because they're still vying. That's probably the one division still left in the NFC. The West is taken care of by San Francisco. You got New Orleans. Looks like they have the NFC South. Green Bay is not going to be caught in the NFC North. So that division, how it affects the new wild card division, and it is its new own division. They're all a big part of this new wild card division, and they're all watching.
Going to the end zone, no. Burleson made the catch, but he was out of the field of play. So Minnesota's defense holding on 3rd down. Is Detroit going for it on 4th down? Clearly did not get 2 feet in bounds. It looks like Jim Schwartz, nope, now he's sending out the field goal unit.
Yeah, and this is the smart thing to do, to get some points going into the half. You'd like to have the touchdown. It's a 2-score differerential. After absolutely everything's gone your way, to put this now at a 3-score differential is the right thing to do.
See that play clock, and they're not going to be ready. And now they're going to set the quarterback. And did they get a timeout? They did get a timeout.
Yeah, he knew he was short, so he had to get up and get that timeout call.
Sean Hill, who's the backup quarterback, also the holder. So coming up on the Visa halftime report, Kurt, Terry, Howie, Michael, and Jimmy. Patriots looking for their first win ever in the nation's capital. How about that? And the Jets, Jets, Jets. Your old buddy Rex Ryan saying they're going to run the table.
You don't want to let them get that swagger back. Believe me, they start to get a little momentum. They can be dangerous.
It can be reviewed since we have yet to have a snap since that play.
Well, they're reviewing with under 2 minutes. They're reviewing the catch made in the corner of the end zone a moment ago by Burleson.
Now, and we saw this is not going to be a catch, because he doesn't have the feet down. He's out of bounds. He only has the 1 foot. But this brings up the point here. The mistake by having to get the timeout called, we talk about the discipline right here, is because this could have been lethal. Imagine if this, say, were good, and because you couldn't get the ball snapped, you now let a score happen. This is the type of progression we're talking about here. This is what we're talking about here. We've seen it all day. Calvin Johnson, you're going to get 2-on-1, 3-on-1. You got to look for those 1-on-1 matchups someplace else. And he went right where he needed to go. Burleson was 1-on-1. This was able to be reviewed, just so everybody's very clear, because we did not get a snap off. Obviously, inside 2 minutes, that comes from the booth. Because of the timeout, had the ball been snapped, a review would not have come into play. But because there was the timeout, that gave us additional time for the booth to want to take another look at it.
Well, Jason Hansen is concentrating on getting ready for this field goal try.
He's looking at the kicker. Hey, look at me, man. Take a peek. This guy does have fun. He and Gunther Cunningham, who coached him in Kansas City, had some fun this week. A little back and forth. Gunther always tough on his players. Gerald Allen, he loves Gerald Allen. It's just he happens to have the wrong jersey on right now. Said he wasn't tough enough to live in this town of Detroit.
Told him to go back to California where all the nice people live.
Yeah. But there's affection there, I promise you. They're taking their time now. I'm not quite sure. Again, clearly there is possession through the process. The thing never moved. He has it all the way, but there was no point. Was he in the end zone?
After reviewing the play stands as called incomplete. 4th down.
All right, so now they're finally going to line up Hansen for a 30-yard field goal try. He's made 27 in a row inside of 40. Although it should be noted, over the last couple of games, both losses to Green Bay on Thanksgiving and then on Sunday night in New Orleans, Hansen has missed 3 of his last 4 overall, but they were lengthy field goal tries, and he had 1 blocked.
He's been doing this for 20 years. You think he's worried about Jaron Allen and what he did earlier? Think he's thinking about that? I've only been doing this for 20 years in this league.
20 years.
20 years. Evidently
right
not.
down the middle.
Evidently not.
Most points in the first half of the game for the Lions since 1985. Wow. And they have been gift wrapped. 24 of them. 24 of the 31. A direct result of Minnesota turnovers.
But Minnesota, you have to be impressed with the way they've responded. It's not looking real good right now. That I'd like to have not given up those final 3 coming off of another turnover. And it's not much consolation, but you know Leslie Frazier, what he's going to do at halftime, Tom, it's real clear cut. Guys, if we don't turn the ball over, we're right here. We just can't turn the ball over. What was one of our keys for success coming in? You can't turn the ball over on the road. They've actually been pretty good coming in. They only had 16 turnovers coming in. But I remember the last time we were in this building, Detroit had they were a league low, I think 8 turnovers or something, and they had, what, 4 or 5 in that game that we did. So you never know when that turnover bug, it's like shanks in your golf game, right? I'm not a golfer, but all of a sudden it just shows up.
That's why I quit playing, because they showed up a lot. So 1:05 left, and again, remember, Minnesota has all 3 timeouts remaining, though this drive will start at their own 20. Ah, yes, Friday, January the 6th. The Cotton Bowl. Kansas State ranked number 8 against 6th ranked Arkansas. 76 Cotton Bowl Classic live from Cowboy Stadium. 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. January the 6th in high definition on Fox. It's the only non-BCS game, by the way, to feature 2 teams ranked in the top 10.
First and 10 Vikings.
22 penalties the last 2 weeks. That's been well documented. 6 of the 22 personal foul penalties. Gerhard, a good first down run up to the 35. Clock continues to run. And Minnesota apparently is not going to, now that calls a timeout.
Yeah, and a little slow on the trigger there. You're always looking to see in this situation, what do I get on my first play? Now, they chose to run the ball, and it got a yard or 2. Okay, I understand, but you just knocked off a pretty good play. You now, with 56 seconds and plenty of timeouts, 2 timeouts to work with, boy, make a decision now, quickly. Get up and get the play, call the timeout. I understand taking the timeout, but boom, do it right now, because you have some time and some timeouts to do some damage here.
First and 10 Vikings.
Now Ponder, after handing it off on the first play of this drive, lays it off to Gerhard out of the backfield. He's up to the 43. Timeout again. 1 remaining for the Vikings.
Now, typically, you would, on a short yardage, you'd like to have run whatever play you want to run. You've got the 2 timeouts. You'd ostensibly like to keep the 1 timeout in your back pocket if you need it to get yourself in a field goal position, take 1 final shot to the end zone, or get yourself in field goal position. Now, if they don't get any yardage here, are they going to get 2 plays in the huddle, or are they going to now use up that other tight end on 3rd down just to keep the drive alive and now be without timeout? So I'll be interested to see what they do here. If they don't get the 1st down, do they get up right to the line and run a play, or execute that last timeout?
Ponder, a short drop, looking around. Far side, catch, tiptoeing out of bounds is Harvin, stopping the clock with 44 seconds. And the ball at the Lions' 43-yard line.
And particularly with the ball or the clock stopped, you're getting close to field goal range. Typically, you don't have to run your true no huddle. Typically, you would call 2 plays in the huddle, so that you get well orchestrated calls rather than trying to do it on the line on the road.
Ponder, a bullet, and it's dropped, it looked like, by the tight end Kyle Rudolph. First time we've called his name today. 38 seconds remain until halftime, and the Vikings again with the 1 timeout. You see it up there. on our Fox box, where there's the one light in the upper left-hand corner, one in the upper right-hand corner, letting you know how many timeouts are left. Need about 10 more yards for a Longwell field goal try at least. And the ball is stripped away, and it's loose. Stripped away by Vanden Bosch. And alertly Gerhardt able to get back and cover it up.
Again, just like we saw to open the game, the key there was an empty hand there for a fumble, was his arm started forward. Minnesota got the ball either way. The key here is the field position you lose that basically, without a big play, puts you in field goal position. Looks like the hand had not started forward, so that was a fumble. Very much like the one that opened the game that led to a score by Averill coming off the other side. Both these tackles getting tested with the wide rush of the ends force you to turn your shoulders early. Very difficult against these wide rushing ends of the Detroit Lions.
Well, it looks like it's coming forward to me.
Now, to me it doesn't. It's the empty hand. It looked like he had not started the impetus. Of course, this is going to be coming from above if they want to look at it. You got a ways to go now just to get back into field goal position.
Well, the timeout was called by the Lions. So it's 3rd down and 25.
And they're going to take a knee.
He's not wanting to take the chance to commit a 5th turnover the first half. For the Lions with 31 points, the most in a first half since 1985. 31-14. Lions lead it at halftime. Let's go to Kurt Menefee in Los Angeles. Time for the Visa halftime report, which begins right now. 31-14, Detroit in front. We invite you to follow your favorite team all season long by going to itunes.com/NFL with Coach Billick and Laura Oakman, Tom Brenneman back at Ford Field here in Detroit. If you're Leslie Frazier, I mean, is there anything more obvious than walking in and saying, guys, we're doing all right outside of turning it over 4 times?
And that's always what you come back to. What have we done to ourselves? And he can legitimately say, without those turnovers, and that's big now, you can't dismiss those, but without those, we've got on the road, we've played pretty decently, particularly offensively, overcoming that emotionally. We always talk about the emotional ups and downs. They get the ball to start here. It'd be behoove them to have another long drive, run the ball the way they've been running it, set up the big play down the field with play action pass, and pull a score out to start this 3rd quarter. Could make this very interesting.
Well, Detroit by and large has mauled opponents in the second half this year. But Minnesota trying to get that turned around. Look at the rushing yards for Minnesota, 112 of them, even without Adrian Peterson. But only 59 passing yards, and of course, the 4 turnovers. 24 points the Lions turn those giveaways into. And here we go to begin the second half. Sherrills will take a knee. Laura Oakman had a chance to visit with some of the participants at halftime. We check in with her.
Well, we know that Christian Ponder was a game-time decision, Tom, with that hit pointer. I asked Leslie Frazier how comfortable he was right now, knowing he's not 100% with those 2 turnovers, with the 2 interceptions, with the fumble. He said he's doing enough good things that I feel okay sticking with him. He said that we're putting together great drives. The problem is we keep shooting ourselves in our foot. We've got to play smarter. But he said we are moving the ball.
Well, that they are. We'll find out if they can not turn it over here in the second half and try to get back into this game. Ponder nearly threw a pick 6 again. That one should have been a touchdown for Eric Wright. First play from scrimmage, stripped by Averill, touchdown by Tulloch. Alfonso Smith, an interception. Got another one that he returned for a touchdown. And then the Lorenzo Booker fumble, which led to a field goal. And nearly this on the first play of the second half. Good, strong, hard running by Gerhardt. That's a first down carry, a gain of 12. What about Jim Schwartz, Laura Oakman?
Well, with all this talk about their behavior, the penalties, I asked Jim Schwartz, what'd you tell your team about holding on to this lead? He said, I didn't tell them to hold on to the lead. I told them to go get more of a lead. We're going to make a defensive stop, then we want to go out there and score. They may have to do that without Maurice Morris, the running back, questionable with a chest injury. Safety Aaron Berry, he is out with a shoulder injury for the rest of the game.
All right, Laura, thanks so much. First down, Vikings, opening possession of the second half, right back in the hands of Gerhardt. He's chopped down by Wright after a gain of close to 4. Talk about what the Lions have done in the second half this year. They've scored the most points. They've allowed the 6th fewest points. And look at that differential.
Well, and one of them was in their first game with these Vikings. They were down 20-0 at half and came back and won that game in an overtime. So certainly the Lions have got to pick up that same sense of urgency as though they're behind.
Play action, Ponder to a wide open Aroma Shadu, and he has a first down to the 40.
Well, you can see how creative Minnesota is. Again, you got Harvin in this reverse bone, and typically they'll motion him out of there, go ahead and hand it to him. The play fake there has drawn the linebackers up. We are seeing Detroit playing a little bit more 8-man box because of the way Minnesota is running the ball. That allows you that one-on-one matchup on the outside that we just saw to Aroma Shadu.
First down at the 38. Ponder throws across his body. Goodness gracious. And it's intercepted by Eric Wright. And then Ponder is leveled after he threw the pass, and Detroit's going to get a penalty. So finally, here we are in the third quarter. Is this going to be? Bobby Carpenter is pointing as though it's on Ponder. And the officials are talking about it. And Stephen Tulloch doesn't like the verdict.
After the interception, personal foul, number 57 of the intercepting team, 15-yard penalty. Correction, 55. 15-yard penalty. First down.
Detroit keeps the ball, but they'll back them up 15 yards. And we'll take a look at it when we come back. 5th. 31-14. Ponder throws really just a poor decision there, running against the grain, throwing across his body, an easy interception. And then Ponder is hit after the interception. Detroit flagged for a 15-yard penalty, but the Lions have the ball for the first time here in the second half. They give it to Keelan Williams. Flag down. He's run out of bounds.
Holding, number 87. Offense, 10-yard penalty. First down.
Well, this is bad on so many levels. First, he gets outside, and you can see coming from the right. Percy Harvin flashes once he gets outside, but you can never throw back against the grain of the defense. That's just a dumb mistake that Christian Ponder can't make. And here now, the quarterback has protection. Unless he is a legitimate threat to make the play, this is to protect quarterbacks so defenses don't go after him. Jim Schwartz can be upset, but he's going to have to go back and make sure his players understand you cannot go after the quarterback like that.
Well, I don't think there's a whole lot that's all that complicated about that rule. Now, he may be saying that Christian Ponder is going to try and make a tackle. But I don't know how you're going to make a tackle when you're 25 yards away from the ball, although Jim Schwartz is going to certainly plead his case with John Perry, the referee.
Yeah, he's going to argue that he was in a legitimate position to make the play, but given the distance from it and the fact that it was the shot from behind, we're protecting the quarterbacks in this league. Just, you got to get used to it. You got to know it's going to get called.
Stafford steps into the throw and makes a good one. It's Calvin Johnson, and that's a first down up to the 40-yard line. Joe Webb is starting to get loose on the Minnesota sideline. He's a backup quarterback.
And I'd be interested to find out whether Christian Ponder took a hit and they're doing that to protect him, which I would certainly understand. If not, I don't understand that. This is all about the growth of Christian Ponder, overcoming these types of situations. If the young man's hurt, I understand it. If you're concerned about him getting hurt further because the way this game's gone, I understand that.
Morris back in the game for the first time since he left in the first half. And Pettigrew makes a reception. Clock continues to run. He's out of bounds at the 44. They'll mark it. Second down coming up.
And this is where Scott Linehan would like to have developed, or would like to develop more of his running game as they go forward, whether it's in this playoff run or actually getting into the playoffs, the presence of the running game. And Scott Linehan, this is a guy that wants to run the ball. This isn't, you know, hey, I'm content to throw it up 45, 50 times. He wants to be able to run the ball. They've just been out of running backs to do it effectively.
Looking for a little running room is Keelan Williams. Williams had a pretty nice year for an undrafted rookie coming out of LSU with the Redskins last year. He caught 39 passes for him out of the backfield, and for whatever reason, Mike Shanahan and the Redskins brass decided we don't need him around. Well, they've needed him this year.
Yeah, and it's been a godsend for the Detroit Lions, given the injuries we talked about. Best. Kevin Smith, it was nice to see him come back and have some productivity, but then he got injured again.
Handed off to Williams, and it looked like he had enough for a first down, needed right at a yard.
And
well, you really hope that Ponder is not hurt from that hit.
Absolutely.
You know, you go back to that hit, and you know, I know that Jim Schwartz talked about it this week, and the 22 penalties they lead the NFL due to the Lions, and personal foul penalties. A lot of people have talked about the team playing through the whistle. For whatever that means, there's a whistle and then there's a whistle. It has a start and a finish. The only hope, really a blindside hit, is not blindside Ponder, as Stafford slides the 46-yard line, and we send it back to Los Angeles and check in with Kurt Benefit.
And we check in with Rob Gronkowski again. Already set the record for most touchdowns by tight end in a single season. This is his second score today, 37 yards. He's got 5 catches, 155 yards, and 2 touchdowns. New England needs all of it right now. They're up by a score in the third quarter over the Skins. Tom and Brian.
All right, Mr. Menifee, thank you very much. Big round of applause here during halftime when they were running highlights of other games. And we brought up earlier that Atlanta is getting shellacked in Carolina. And dropped back at the 50 by Remy Adele. Here's Stafford.
Tom, I brought a team in here, and here you can see the hit on Ponder. I brought a team in here in Detroit a couple years ago, and I lost control of that team. And it was my good players, my star players, Terrell Suggs, Ed Reed, cascading set of calls by the officials, and I lost control of the team. I couldn't reel it back in. The next day, I stood in front of them with my owner and my general manager and said, look, I'm going to be the arbiter here. I'm going to decide if I ever see that again, you're coming out of the game, no discussion, because you need to draw that line. Jim Schwartz has made it clear to this team how he wants them to conduct themselves. Make no mistake about that. Now you just got to go out on the field and get it done.
Stafford throws, underthrow. So the Lions will punt it away. Well, look, Ryan, you were there. I've never coached an NFL team, never will. But you can talk from now until next Tuesday. Plays like that are going to continue to give the Lions a bad name. That is a hit on a quarterback from the blind side, 25 yards away from where the ball, and the guy who intercepted the ball ran out of bounds on his own. Sherrill's a fair catch at the 12. So 8:02 to play here in the third quarter, and the Lions with a big lead. See it here in Detroit. We see it at NFL venues every weekend. Standing ovation for a member of the military. just had a little boy.
How about that? He was looking up the board going, hey, my Lions are up. That's exactly what he was thinking.
God bless them all.
That's great.
Yeah, indeed. He even got the bird blanket there with him.
He wanted to see what the score was. He's a true Lion fan.
Well, Christian Ponder is out of the game. And we are awaiting word from the Minnesota sideline as to why. First down carry by Gerhardt, lunges forward for maybe 2 yards. We're wondering, is it just a bad day? You know, we know he had the hip pointer the entire week, did not really practice much at all until Friday. Checked him out before the game today. Or did it have anything to do with the shot that he took after throwing the last interception from Stephen Tulloch?
I can promise you, if that's the case, Christian Ponder doesn't want to come out of this game. And on a 2-10 football team that's all about developing the 12th pick of last year's draft, it's painful, I understand that, but this is where you learn in those situations.
3 interceptions, 4 turnovers all told by Ponder. Leading to 24 points of the 31. Third down, we'll call it a long yard. Webb can't run. He's forced to run and will run for a first down.
Forced down by Bobby Carpenter at the 24-yard line. First down, Minnesota.
This is what Joe Webb does get you. It's an empty backfield. He gets outside, vision downfield. Nice little stiff arm there, and then the last little bit of athleticism to get the first down. A running quarterback is always a concern for a defense. Nice job with the stiff arm. Careful you don't get the face mask there.
Now we have seen Webb. In fact, we saw him last week as a wide receiver, made his first career start. That's right, backup quarterback, started as a wide receiver last week. Playing in his 12th game. He made 3 starts at the end of last year, but for Ponder, a day to forget. An early interception after a fumble was recovered for a touchdown and led to a touchdown there. The interception by Alphonso Smith, his second, turned into a touchdown. Threw a couple of touchdown passes, the last one to Harvard. So now Webb, who you may remember, started against Philadelphia, got a win last season. That one is incomplete. But they very much like Joe Webb. I mean, obviously they went out and drafted Ponder in the first round. Webb, a 6th-round pick in 2010 out of the University of Alabama at Birmingham. He can do a lot of things. He can run, he can catch, and they think he can be a good quarterback.
And there was a point where they really thought, primarily this was under Brad Childress, that they thought Webb could very well become that starter for them when Brett Favre was there and before they took Ponder, that he might develop into that guy.
Well, he avoids trouble looking down the field, and he will get a first down. Second first down run on a 3rd down play up to the 35-yard line.
Again, you're going to see the rush on the outside here and some pressure. Excuse me, they brought it inside. Gets to the outside, and he has this kind of speed. Now, Ponder has shown this ability as well, but it's this type of athleticism that gets you these cheap first downs. Harvin now transitioning. You can see right here. Watch him turn and go on first down. He knows where the first down. That's just a complete athlete there on Harvin's part. Knowing where that first down is, knowing that last hit might have kept him from getting the conversion.
Play action fake. Webb underthrows an open receiver across the riddle. Aromashadu. 2nd down.
Well, the good news, bad news for Minnesota. Let's remember that Christian Ponder did not take a lot of snaps this week because of the hip. Really only practiced the last day on Friday, which means Joe Webb got a majority of the snaps on Wednesday and Thursday. Certainly that's going to help him, obviously. And right now, Detroit's got to adjust their game plan a little bit. We've seen right now, he gets outside the pocket. They got to rush down, slow down the rush lanes, keep him in the pocket, make Joe Webb throw from inside the pocket. Don't let him get outside again.
Gerhardt escaped a big loss. Got away from Cliff Averill, got away from Bobby Carpenter, but eventually run out of bounds, getting back to the line of scrimmage. So 3rd down and 10 for Webb, who coming into this game has only thrown 2 passes all year long.
This down and distance should have Percy Harvin and Visanthe Shenko, who are on the same side right now. Here and here should have that written all over them, and Rudolph's on the backside. Those are your biggest targets.
Blitz coming. Webb steps out of it. And for a 3rd straight time, he runs for a 1st down, and this one may go the distance, and it will for a touchdown. Joe Webb goes 50, make it 65 yards for a touchdown. My, oh my.
We say it every week, Tom. I want you to watch this rush on the outside. He goes inside right there. You can almost see, gosh, no, I shouldn't have done that. Although he looks like he's pulling up a little bit. You cannot let a ball carrier or you cannot let a quarterback with that kind of athleticism get outside the perimeter of the defense. Do everything you can to keep them in the pocket.
That was a longer run than Adrian Peterson's best this season. Peterson celebrating the sideline. He went for 54. Webb goes for 65.
Yeah, Gunther Cunningham, Jim Schwartz knowing they got to get something corrected here. We've talked about it all day. You're in complete control of the game. Jim Schwartz now coming over, a former defensive coordinator, talking to his defense. What did he just say? Make this guy throw the ball. Do not let him get outside. Joe Webb converted on 3 3rd downs with his legs. You could see it right there. Make this guy throw the ball.
Look at Webb. All 3 of his rushes, as Brian mentioned, all 3 of them coming on 3rd down. Converting the first 2, and a 3rd one turns into a touchdown. Longest run by a Viking this season. And the 3rd career rushing touchdown in the limited playing time for Mr. Webb. So all of a sudden we have a 10-point game. Maybe not for long. Flags all over the field. Logan races down the sideline and is dragged down out of bounds at the 33. But again, there are flags at the other end.
Talk about getting outside the perimeter of the defense. You can't let anybody get outside.
During the return, holding, number 39 of the return team, 10-yard penalty, 1st and 7.
Well, I want to tell you,
Timeout on the field.
Jim Schwartz was working those officials over. That wipes out a 71-yard return.
Brandon Burton, number 36, is the one getting held. And I believe they called this on Ricardo Silva, and then it's Burton who comes down, and Jim Schwartz was complaining. He thought it was a horse collar. Looks like he got some jersey, but I don't know that it came from behind. Didn't get his hand in the jersey in behind. That's what Jim Schwartz was complaining about on the sideline.
And now this drive begins from their own 10-yard line. That's Aaron Brown out of the backfield.
He's trying to call horse collar all the way. That was in that gray area. He got a hold of the jersey. You just can't get a hold of it directly behind either the jersey or the pad to make it a horse collar.
Denied a 1st down on 2nd and a yard. Robinson coming off the edge to make the tackle. So now here we are again, 3rd down and a yard. We brought it up earlier. They're 1 of 2 today, and that's right around where they are on the season. 3rd down and a yard, right around the 50% mark. Get coverage of every NFL game with NFL Mobile. All Star NFL Now. There's a big down here for the Lions. And a big play for the Lions. Titus Young all the way up to the 45-yard line. Good call and executed perfectly.
Yeah, I'm not so sure this wasn't what's called a smoke route, where he just raises up because he saw the pressure. They obviously loaded the box to stop the run. That removes the inside coverage. The only guys that knew they were throwing it was Young and the quarterback Stafford.
Mistral Raymond, the injured Viking. We take an injury timeout. 10-point game with 2:50 in the third. Mistral Raymond, the rookie out of South Florida, injured a moment ago, jogging back into the Minnesota locker room. Jared Page, number 24, takes his place, and he's playing about 35 yards down the field. He's complete on the first down pass. And Stafford slow to get up. Where Stafford missed 19 games his first 2 years in the league.
Boy, and he gets the ball. He has to get the ball out a little quicker than he wanted, and he got sandwiched on that one. You got to hope Stafford just can shrug this one off, because his 13 games this year matched the total he had in the first 2 years. You hope that he can, this is just something he can shrug off.
He looks a little wobbly right now. He's going to hand it off. And a second down run, a good second down run by Keelan Williams. And yeah, there you're going to look at Stafford. He need a little help with his equipment.
And hopefully all that is, he's getting pinched up with his pads there. You can see now there's Sean Hill's on the ready right here. I think he just got sandwiched right there, had to catch his breath, and his pads are poking at him there.
Been sacked 5 times. Hit for a 6th time there a moment ago. Young, it depends on where they're going to spot the ball, and it's a favorable spot for Young. Well, it looked like he tried to dance out of the way to get some more yardage.
And he goes back on his own. I don't know if that's forward progress when you go back on your own. They may want to take a look at that. It was awful close either way. It's forward progress is forward progress, but when you go back on your own, you're on your own. I don't know why, given where you are right now, why you would not challenge that.
First down, final middle of the third quarter. Maurice Morris back in the game. He's inside the 45. And they'll spot it. We'll wait and see if he got to the 43. 50 seconds remain here in the third quarter, and it's a 10-point game. This one a long ways from being over.
Titus Young is an excellent young receiver. Excellent route runner. He's got outstanding hands. But again, we've seen where he's young, and he does make mistakes. Hopefully he's learning as he goes. But he is a dynamic receiver down here, particularly one-on-one. An excellent route runner for a young player.
Into traffic, and it's batted away. Tony Scheffler, the tight end, looking for a flag. Didn't get it. Let's send it to Kurt Menefee and check in from L.A.
The Saints have the highest scoring offense in the league, but they've gone 3 quarters without a touchdown today against Tennessee. That is until Drew Brees hooked up with a wide open Marcus Colston for the 35-yard score. Right now they lead at 16-10. Tennessee playing with Jake Locker in for the into Matt Hasselbeck. Tom and Brian.
Of course, Jake Locker, one of the 3 quarterbacks chosen ahead of Christian Ponder in last year's draft, along with #1 pick Cam Newton, and of course behind Locker was Blaine Gabbert. Reception made, and in traffic a couple of extra yards for Pettigrew. That's a strong man.
That's a heck of a throw, and that is a man's catch by the big tight end. This is what you love about tight ends. You come inside and you've got such a sweep spot to go to these guys, a big physical guy like that. Just what you're looking for at the tight end position. Well, we come back to this throw by Matthew Stafford to Brandon Pettigrew. Look at this now. That's a tight hole. That's a big man that can bring the ball in. That's life as a tight end right there. Oh, a little bit of face mask they got away with.
More than a little.
But I tell you what, you play tight end in this league, that's a man's world, because those are the type of catches you typically have to make. You're in that linebacker level. Typically you're going to get hit like this. They've developed a nice relationship. He was huge in their last win when they came from behind to win in Minneapolis.
Fake it to Logan. Set up the screen to Keelan Williams. I tell you what little we saw Keelan Williams last year, Brian. I brought it up earlier. It's just hard to understand why you'd let a guy like this walk out the door. He can run the ball a little bit, catches the ball out of the backfield.
Watch this, well designed. They fake the reverse that kind of holds everybody for a second, and then you throw a screen in behind a fake reverse. That's a great combination there, and obviously he gets a lot on his own. In Washington, they had Halou, the young back that they obviously felt like was going to be good for him. But you're right, anytime you see a player convert like that, you wonder how he got away from the team he was originally with.
Yeah, he comes out of a big-time winning program at LSU. There's a horse collar indeed on Robinson.
Jim Schwartz is going to go ballistic on this one.
Defense, horse collar type tackle, half the distance, 1st and 10.
That is a horse collar. Not only the jersey, but the pad. Not much of one, just got a little bit of it. And I'm not sure he didn't hurt himself more because he landed right on his knee. But that is a dangerous tackle. I've seen far too many injuries come out of that, pulling from behind on the pads. That's a good rule.
And then Robinson has to limp off the field. So 1st down at the 12 for Detroit. And for all intents and purposes, I mean, barring a complete meltdown, Minnesota pretty much has to hold the Lions to a field goal to have a chance in this game. They score a touchdown, you make it a 3-possession game, you can pretty much phone it in.
And that's the challenge for the Lions right now. Again, we keep talking about they're in the playoff division. The games they've got coming up next week against Oakland, we're going to be there. They finish with Green Bay. Who knows what that one's going to hold, whether Green Bay is going for the perfect season or not.
Williams up through the middle, barrels his way inside the 5, needed to get to the 2-yard line for a 1st down.
Just a nice little inside trap action in here, little draw action, excuse me, to the weak side. Had the right number count. Good physical. Look at the way he's carrying his pads. I love the way this kid is running. We talk about a short yardage on a 3rd and 1. Down in the red zone, this is the one thing, again, that the Detroit Lions have been missing, the ability to just match up man for man and run the ball when you need to run the ball, that they're going to need as they go forward in this playoff hunt.
Williams, I don't think he got there. All right. If indeed he is shy of a 1st down, if you're Jim Schwartz, if you kick the field goal, it's still a 2-possession game. Do you go for it? They're
look at this on a no huddle. This is an interesting call. They may try to draw him off sides with this crooked call. And that's exactly what they were doing. They're letting the clock come down now. I like the orchestration of this. Some of the fans might boo. That shows great orchestration. I like what Detroit has done here. Clearly, they're going to now.
Offense, 5-yard penalty.
They're going to go for the field goal. And I like this because here's what they did. It shows that they had a plan in the game plan. You never know when it's going to come up. Short yardage. They weren't going to go for it. Let's hustle up, see if we can force them to mistake. They're doing the right thing kicking the field goal because now you're going to put the differential to 13. It's going to take at least 2 touchdowns or a touchdown and a couple field goals to get this thing back to where Minnesota. I just like the way they orchestrated this. This was a nice sequence for the Detroit Lions.
And by the way, they just took a penalty to give a little loosen the tie, if you will, for Hansen. This will be a 26-yard field goal try. Good snap, good hold, and right down the middle. So a 34-21 game with 12:17 to play. We're 12 minutes to go here in the Motor City. 15 plays, 83 yards. Field goal good by Hansen, and Percy Harvin for the first time today drops back to receive this kick. Last time we saw him do that, he went up to his coach. Vikings were in Atlanta and said, let me return the kick. We need a big play. Went 104 yards, and it wasn't a touchdown. The longest kickoff return in the history of the NFL that was not a scoring play. And he'll get a chance to return this one. Trying to make something happen. The electrifying Percy Harvin across the 30. Man, is he something. Golly day. Passing game, running game, return game. Percy Harvin can do it all. Well, after the big return by Harvin, Minnesota offensively with 12:09 to go, down by 13, but this drive starts from its own 40, and Joe Webb lays it off to who else but Harvin for a gain of 4 on first down.
This is a great return by Harvin. He combines the combination of size and speed. I want you to show right here, though, too. I want you to watch how this is how not to commit a penalty on special teams. He's behind him. He just kind of uses his body. Typically, you'd see a blocking from behind. Nice job there by Anatola. And Harvin, you know, normally you have speed on kickoff return or you have power. This guy has speed and power.
Question is, can Joe Webb throw you back into this game? That's incomplete. He had an open receiver, Shenko. That would have turned into a first down. He was under heavy pressure. Now, here we are on a third down. The first series directed by Webb, you may remember. It looked like Detroit blitzed on all 3 third downs. The first 2 times Webb ran for first downs. The third time he ran 65 yards for a first down.
If they let him outside the pass rush, you may see Gunther Cunningham standing next to him on the field because he's going to go ballistic.
Only a 3-man rush this time. And Webb delivers to Camarillo. That's a first down at the 43-yard line.
Nice job here by Joe Webb. It was a 3-man rush with a delayed rush. You can see the 3-man rush. Now he's spying right here. You can see he step up. This was a late rush by Averill, who was backed off the line, and Joe Webb made the throw. Give him credit for that. Nice job. Much more intelligent rush by the Detroit Lions there.
Only a second catch in the last 6 weeks for Greg Camarillo. Ball at the Lions 42, play fake. Webb, wow, he had a wide open Kyle Rudolph if he just would have perhaps planted those feet, because it looked like he had time to deliver a clean ball.
Yeah, had he planted his feet a little earlier than Kyle Vanden Bosch here coming off the right side, probably would have eaten him up. Always tough going to the left as a right-handed quarterback. Tried to get it stopped, couldn't quite get himself around for a legitimate throw.
Webb on in relief of Christian Ponder. Nothing to report on the injury front by Ponder. Wondered if he would play this week at all because of a hip pointer last week, and that's a first down run by Gerhardt to the 31. And we check in again back in Los Angeles with Kurt Menefee.
Well, the Falcons were down 23-7 at halftime, but they've come back with 17 unanswered points. Capped off by the Matt Ryan, Julio Jones 17-yard score. And they lead it 24-23 in the fourth quarter. Tom and Brian, of course, is the game Atlanta needs to keep their playoff hopes on track.
Well, both of these teams, Atlanta, Detroit, you know about Chicago, the Giants, all 4 trying to get in. Webb forever to throw, and throws it away.
You can see the change here. It's coming off the edge. Klein Saucer staying in for protection. The longer it goes, they're going to let Joe Webb try to throw this out. Harvin on the backside, looking for this little fade. Had him early, but obviously trying to read it out. Detroit clearly going for a more passive secondary look. The blitzing that we saw earlier didn't work, so they're going passive now.
Four-man rush again into traffic, and it's batted away by Spivey. 3rd down and 10.
Spivey doing a nice job in 2 deep with that linebacker trailing Shenko. You're not counting on him, other than all that linebacker that is there to do is to force a higher throw. When you play 2 deep, which is Tampa 2 with the linebacker running down the middle, you're just there to affect the throw. It did. It allowed the safety to come over the top and make the play.
Minnesota 7 of 10 on 3rd down, converting its last 4. Big one here. Webb looking around, dancing around. Wow, did you get an idea about the mobility of Joe Webb there? He must have run 50 yards on that play. He's a couple of yards short of a 1st down, so now a decision. You need 2 touchdowns to take the lead. 2 field goals and a touchdown, more than likely he's not going to cut it. You got to go, don't you?
Yeah, and I don't know that you have the time. The numbers you were just talking about, the number of possessions to think touchdown and 2 field goals, 9 minutes, a little over 9 minutes. You don't have that kind of time on the possession. They're doing the right thing here. Boy, you love the athleticism. You can see why you can get excited about Joe Webb.
Minnesota's going to call a timeout before this 4th and 2.
The first. Courage timeout. Minnesota.
Minnesota breaks the huddle. 9:22 to go. 3 and 12 on 4th down. 4th and 2 here.
Horsey Harvin, where is he?
Gerhard got him inside the 20, down to the 18. That's just power football.
With a little misdirection. Going to see Harvin coming over the top with the fake just to hold the backside just a little bit. Let the big boy Gerhard pound forward for the 1st down. Tebow asked if I may with regards to Webb out of the backfield. I had to get a Tebow reference in here, or you'd not let me ride the airport with you.
It's laid off to Harvin out of the backfield. Slips 1 tackle and gets inside the 15, close to the 10. They'll spot it at the 11. And Minnesota banging on the door.
Same thing now, just underneath basically a boot and waggle action. Let's remember what we said. Joe Webb took most of the snaps on Wednesday and Thursday. They weren't sure Ponder was going to play. So obviously a game plan was installed with the idea that Webb could play. Late, obviously, on Friday, Ponder could go, change that a little bit. But they probably have a sizable Joe Webb package.
And a big day for Harvin. They're looking for Rudolph, but Webb's going to run it. Rudolph gave him a block and sprung him inside the 5.
Nice conversion by the rookie Rudolph. They were trying to do the same thing they just did with Harvin. Kind of little a boot action. You're going to see Rudolph come out into here like Harvin did. They stay with it, stay with it. Now Autry converts right here. All right, I'll turn into a blocker. I know Joe Webb can run. Nice job by the rookie tight end.
Well, they bring in the big fella, LaTroy Guyon, for some extra beef, and that's some beef. Inside the 2. And then they throw it. Little misdirection, and it's a touchdown for Gerhard. And now with just under 8 minutes to go, we have a game here in Detroit.
And just what we talked about verifies why they needed to go for it. They make the extra point here now. Obviously now we got a legitimate, not only a 1-score game, okay, but it's a 1-score game where you can take the lead.
Point after is good. So now the pendulum swings the other way. Stafford and the Lions need to choose some clock, pick up some yards, because Minnesota's right with them. Gerhard, the 2-yard touchdown reception. 34-28.
Want you to watch the difficulty on the outside. He cuts down DeAndre Levy on the outside, making it tough for the linebacker to fight through. This is what allowed the little boot action, or the fake action, I should say, to get to Gerhardt on the outside. Well conceived play.
So now Logan from the 2-yard line. Still on his feet up to the 26. Well, things have really heated up early on. It was all about turnovers for Minnesota. 4 of them leading to 24 points for the Lions in the first half, including one return for a touchdown by Alphonso Smith. But Joe Webb came on in relief of Christian Ponder, went 65 yards on a touchdown run. Directs that drive of nearly 70 yards, capped off by the touchdown to Gerhardt. And now Chad Greenway, Jared Allen and company, trying to stop Matthew Stafford and the Lions on offense and give Webb the ball one more time. Swing it out to Williams. And up to the 32-yard line. That's a good pickup on first down of 5.
We opened up the game talking about how Detroit had made an emphasis when we met with them on Friday, about being efficient in their passing game, because they thought that Minnesota would get into their very conventional 2-deep coverage, and that's what we're apt to see here. The Minnesota Vikings are going to challenge Matthew Stafford to have that patience, but at some point this clock will be a factor, and they're going to have to force a turnover.
Nothing there. Kevin Williams wrapping up Keelan Williams, no relation. Well, look at the numbers. Of course, Detroit hasn't had to do a lot on offense because of all the turnovers.
And I want you to check this number right here now. That is 9 penalties. We talked about the penalties in the open. It has cost them here a couple opportunities to create even more separation. That again has been a factor in this game.
Well, here we go. This is one of the biggest plays we've had in the game. 3rd down and 4. Stafford converts on 3rd down. Finding Burleson. So the clock will run. Under 6.5 to go.
And again, what are we seeing? Short motion in, short intermediate passing game. Good solid pressure on the outside. Good accuracy by Matthew Stafford. And again, Minnesota sitting in a very loose defense that says you're not going to get the big play. That's all well and good, but at some point they're going to have to get an out because the clock is becoming more and more a factor.
Well, we're under 6 minutes to go. Stafford letting that play clock go all the way down to 3. And then the catch is made by Calvin Johnson and a good tackle by Sherrills to avoid a huge gain, but it's a gain of 8.
And you can see they're in the slot right now. The nickelback Sherrills at 5'10" is not going to be a match for Calvin Johnson at 6'4", 6'5". Putting him in the slot is a good idea on the part of Detroit, because outside they can roll the coverage. Inside you can either bracket him or hope that the outside coverage gobbles him up. But one-on-one he's going to beat pretty much anybody on the inside.
Keelan Williams on 2nd down, and he loses yardage. Big Kevin Williams, who over these last 3-4 weeks is healthy for the first time all year long, and he's playing like a guy who's been to 5 Pro Bowls. So here we are again on another 3rd down.
I'll be interested to see if they put Calvin Johnson in the slot again, and Brandon Pettigrew, who is likely to be lined up against a linebacker, and that's exactly what they've done. Now Pettigrew is motioning over to the other side.
56.
There's Pettigrew here, and they put Johnson on the outside, I believe, up top, short motion him now. They're going to work him in tandem.
Stafford backing up, catch is made, and short of a first down, it looks like, if indeed it is a catch. It looked like that ball may have been bobbled.
Forced to get the ball off early. Good pressure by Minnesota. Can't see anything there. It's kind of a moot point because it is short of the first down either way.
Oh, but Brian, if he's short, it is by inches. And Jim Schwartz says this is not even debatable. The punt team's coming out.
Yeah, you got to have faith in your defense. Your defense has played well. A little shakier in the second half. Because if you don't make this, again, I go back to your point. How much troubles have they had with a 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 offense?
Well, the punt will get into the end zone. Nearly. A great play. Laid down towards the end zone.
They almost pulled off. I want you to watch right here. If Wendling hadn't have fallen, right here, if he can just get it back in the field of play, and he does not, to have put that on the 1. Almost a brilliant special teams play. Wendling was in position to do it. He just stumbled before he got there.
All right, well, here we are. And look, let's put it into perspective. Yes, the Lions have 3 games left after this game. But the magic number is getting to 10 wins. And they've got to play the Packers the final game of the year.
And on the road to Oakland next week.
This was a game they needed to win. If
Absolutely.
They lose this game, it will be a devastating blow for their chances to make the playoffs. This is the biggest defensive series of this season for Detroit. And the catch is made by Shanko on first down up to the 28-yard line. You can't stress it enough. This Lions team is playing a Minnesota team that is 2-10, and they're on their home field. And granted, not saying if they lose this game, they're not going to make the playoffs, but this was one you figure to put in the win column, and they're trying to do that. Webb will run out of bounds, and that's another first down up to the 33-yard line.
First down, Minnesota.
The pressure, you can take care of a rushing quarterback one of a couple ways. Obviously, you need a 4 or 5 man rush, not necessarily to put pressure on him, but to fill the lanes to keep him from running. A sheer 4-man rush has to be very, very disciplined to give you coverage on the backside. And right now, Joe Webb is breaking down that 4-man rush.
Double coverage there and well underthrown. Alfonso Smith already with a pair of interceptions today. You see the numbers on Webb, who has done so much damage on the ground. 65 of the 99 yards rushing came on the 65-yard touchdown run. Miraculously escapes trouble and then nearly threw an interception, and again it was almost Alfonso Smith. Camarillo playing the defender.
This is just a matter of transition, and this is going to be a great play or a, oh my gosh, what are you doing? And you can see here late, Camarillo doing a nice job. He's got to turn into the defender to get that thing on the ground, because an interception would have been lethal.
They're down at 10.
Percy Harvin.
Gerhard the catch and got good extra yardage after the catch. It'll bring up 4th down and less than a yard, depending on where they spot it. Yeah, he looks to be just about a yard, half a yard short.
And this is the side, we talk about the physical running style of Gerhard. It looks like he is short, although that may bring about a challenge. But just that physical running style, he had 3 guys he busted through to get that extra yardage to make this thing even debatable. They're going to measure it. The chains are on this sideline, so they're going to have a very short way to go, and it looks like they're a little short. Clearly Minnesota will go for it. And here's the interesting thing from Minnesota. Obviously with Joe Webb in, we've already seen it. You have a lot more options, and I mean that figuratively and literally. To be able to run the option game, to get him to the edge. We've already seen a cross buck action where you bring Harvin over the top and fake it and throw the ball. They have a lot of options on short yardage with Joe Webb.
Perhaps a trip to the playoffs on the line for Detroit. Minnesota still has a long way to go. Short yardage, they've got Harvin on the sideline.
They are configured for a true short yardage play unless they play action fake it.
It all depends.
Where do they spot it?
Minnesota signaling first down. It looks like if that's a spot right there by the line judge, it will be enough for a first down. Well, they'll have the 2-minute warning to check it out.
This is a 2-minute warning.
It was ruled a first down on the carry by Gerhardt. So first down here at the 43-yard line, and Webb looking around. Dumps it off to Gerhardt, read beautifully, or rather Rudolph read beautifully on defense by Carey. Second down and 10. And they said Rudolph did not get out of bounds, so the clock continues to run. Minnesota down 6 with the ball. Webb throws, catch is made to the 39-yard line by Camarillo. We mentioned he had only had 1 catch the last 5 weeks. 2 big ones on the last 2 drives.
And it's Webb moving around the pocket. You can see how it breaks down the defense. Eventually you've got to come up and take the underneath guys. Webb stepping up in the pocket, buys him time for Camarillo to sit on the rail against 2 deep coverage and get him a big first down.
So now the Lions huddle up. Defensively, the Vikings do the same offensively. Minnesota with 2 timeouts left. All day to throw it. And in and out of the hands of Aroma Shadu. That looked like a play that should have been made by Aroma Shadu.
Wow. They've chosen to go with a spy defense. You can see Averill looks like a linebacker. He's slow paying to stay with Joe Webb. If he comes out of that pocket, he's going to find him to try to run him down. With what looks like a 3-man rush, it's a delayed 4-man rush. Boy, you'd like to have had that catch. Wow, what a great throw.
And Carey did get a finger on it, in fairness to Aroma Shadu. Harvin delivers a hit, takes a hit. He's piled up to the 31-yard line. And Minnesota forced to take a timeout with 1:11 yet left. Eric Wright just came back in the game after leaving with a hamstring injury.
Again, watch how he keeps this play alive. You can't imagine how this breaks down a defense. You only have the 4-man rush, all but a delayed one. And now these zones start to break down as the play gets elongated. Even if it's just an underneath throw like that, you have to kind of give those up. But with a guy like Percy Harvin, he's going to get some good yardage, even a throw that's made at the line of scrimmage.
Well, you know, we get back to Harvin, a young man who has been well documented, has been plagued by migraine headaches, going all the way back to his collegiate days in Florida. And right there, could have gone out of bounds to try and stop the clock, might not have made it, so he just lowered his shoulders and got what he could.
This is where we may see a little of the option. You see Harvin motion back into the backfield.
Yep. Booker, who had a huge fumble earlier in the game, hangs on to it this time and converts on a first down, and the clock is now at 1 minute. And the ball is at the 27-yard line. 1 timeout left for the Vikings. Harvin this time does get out of bounds at the 24-yard line, stopping the clock with 47 seconds remaining. For those of you that are just joining us, here you have a Detroit team. Began the year 5-0. They've lost 5 of their last 7, committing 22 penalties in back-to-back losses to Green Bay and New Orleans. They had a 21-0 lead in this game. Webb fires, catch made, and getting out of bounds for a first down is Aroma Shadu at the 16. They'll spot it inside the 17.
First down.
Not only was it 21-0 in the first quarter, Lions, it was 31-14 at halftime.
The timeout is of no significance. You can see here they have one left, other than maybe to give yourself a third or fourth down call, because you don't have to save it to get yourself set up for a field goal, because a field goal obviously does you no good.
Low snap. Webb digs it out, throws to the end zone, and incomplete. 36 seconds remain.
This is the tough call for Gunther Cunningham, because the 4-man rush, or the delayed 3-man with Averill from the linebacker position, isn't putting enough pressure on Webb. You may have to bring that extra guy, but now you're down to some matchups outside with Harvin. Let's remember how injured this secondary of the Detroit Lions was coming in without a Chris Houston or Louis Delmas, so they may have to live with this 4-man rush and hope that the zone secondary can hold up.
The screen to Harvin, and he slips inside the 15 down to the 12-yard line, and Minnesota calls its final timeout of the game. 28 seconds left. It is a third down coming up. Ball is inside the 12. They need to get to the 6 for a first down.
And this is where the Minnesota Vikings, Bill Musgrave, the offensive coordinator, you have no timeouts left. It's a third down. You've got to have 2 calls in the huddle. The last thing you want to do is have an orchestrated third down call. You get up and you're short, and now you've got to get to the line to make a call. Obviously, if they get a first down on this play, they can kill the ball and now give themselves a more orchestrated call. But if you have to make a 4th down play, you don't want to have to rush to get it done. Not with 29 seconds.
Similar type situation at the other end. They had Shenko set up like he was going to block, and they laid it off to him, and he went wide open into the end zone. Thrown behind Harvin, it's 4th down. That was a pass that should have been made. And Webb just misfired.
Just a little bit behind him. Having to be just a little bit safe. DeAndre Levy waiting on the inside, so he needed to throw a little bit back shoulder, but obviously clearly too far behind him.
Well, we said it earlier, and now we say it again. Perhaps their playoff hopes rest on this 4th down.
Percy Harvin here in the slot.
3-man rush. Webb's going to run for it, and he's going to get it. He's all the way down to the 2-yard line. They're going to have to get him to the line of scrimmage out of timeouts and spike the ball. And that Webb will, there's a penalty there, and this is going to be against Detroit. Cliff Averill jumped off sides. If that is indeed the call.
Offside, defense number 92, half the distance to the goal. First down.
Particularly on a play where you know they're going to spike it. I don't know what the upside to this was. They're clearly jumping it.
Well, you're giving them another yard. And how many times have you heard the old adage, the old cliche, every yard matters.
And more importantly, it stops the clock.
What are you doing? You got 9 seconds.
Well, if you're going to run some type of option, you know, it's either got to throw the ball, it's clear cut all the way, or run some type of option. Get Joe Webb outside the perimeter of this defense.
And Detroit calls timeout. First of this half by Jim Schwartz. The Lions began the year at 5-0. And if you're wondering, if you're one of those people that just like sheer numbers, well, here you have it. When you're 7-6, your chances of making the playoffs are 39%. When you're 8-5, your chances are 70%. Now, there's no guarantee in those numbers, but it is what it is.
And let's go back to what we were talking about, the options here. You can run the ball, clearly, but I don't know if you get stopped, if you have the time to get up and kill the ball again like we talked about. You just don't have enough time with 9 seconds. So you've got to get Joe Webb outside the perimeter of this defense, give him a pass option that as it stretches out, maybe I can pull the ball down and run, put it in your athlete's hands and see what he can do with it. Percy Harvin's going to be up here in the slot. This could be up into here. Get Joe Webb out to the right, to the way he wants to go.
And you got Rudolph at 6'6" down in the corner. And Webb loses the ball. And the game will end. Unbelievable. The playoff hopes still alive.
And he was doing just what you said, Tom. He was going to go to the fade to Rudolph Hill. He didn't have it. I don't know what got him to pull it back down, but at that point he had limited options. Got away with a face mask here.
Oh, my.
We're going to come back and see that one all week long, at least in Minneapolis. Wow. Bravo to the Vikings, though, to come back, fight through it the way they did, taking this down to literally the last play.
So the Lions